to the Adventure of Pipeman on W4CY Radio.
Wake up, America! It's time for the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY.com, West Palm Beach's #1 internet radio station. Here's your host, the Pipeman.
Rely a bit too heavily on alcohol and irony, get clobbered on by courtesy, in love with love and lousy poetry. And I'm leaning on this broken fence between past and present tense.
This is the Pipeman here on the Adventures of Pipeman W4CY Radio, and I'm here with
Anthony from Bayside.
Nice, here at Aftershock.
Yeah.
Man, I love that you're here. This is a fucking great
Yeah, we're
day.
psyched to be here. This is our second time doing the festival. We did it, I think, two or 3 years ago.
Yeah, and to me, this is one of my favorite Danny Wimmer festivals because it's just a cool atmosphere. You got the trees, and you got this area back here, and
Yeah.
like, people really are into this festival. Like, I know people in this Sac area, and they just look forward to this every year. It's like their only thing to do every year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a good one. Yeah, you're right. We've done a few of the other Wimmer shows, and this is the trees and sort of the grass. It does make for a nice location for
Yeah,
it.
no doubt. So tell us a little bit about what's been going on this year in 2024. You got a new album that came out. You even dropped another new single.
Yeah, we put out a new record called There Are Worse Things Than Being Alive earlier this year. And we did a big headline tour around that in the spring. And then we took most of the rest of the year off. We have the festival today.
Yeah.
And then we have a show tomorrow in near Joshua Tree.
Nice.
And then next weekend we have two nights in Vegas, like a 2-day festival in Vegas. And then we have the rest of the year off. So big tour in the spring, slow year otherwise, because next year is our 25th anniversary as a band.
Does that blow your mind?
Yeah, it's crazy. I've been in the band longer than I wasn't in the band. I started the band when I was 17, and I've been in the band for 25 years, so it's like all I know at this point.
It's so wild to think of anything like that when you get to our stages of life where you're thinking that you did anything for 25 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or friends, like, oh, I've known this person for 25 years. I'm like sitting there like, how the hell did that happen?
Yeah, I'm dangerously getting towards that spot where you're in a band so long that I'm dangerously incapable of doing anything else.
Right?
You know, it's really getting close to the point where all right, now this has to last forever because I'm not equipped.
I think you're a little committed now.
Yeah, I'm not equipped to do anything else at this point.
That's what I was thinking, it's just covering the final No Effects show. I'm like, how are they not going to be playing anymore?
I know.
Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah, I think hearing about their retirement definitely made me think about oh fuck, I hope I never have to retire.
Yeah. And that a band even retired,
yeah.
that just and then Slayer played last night.
Yeah.
And here's the cool thing though, they stopped 5 years ago, but I think Tom was bored. Because Tom's the one that wanted to get off the road.
Oh, yeah.
And he was just up there smiling, and that Riot Fest, too. Smiling and laughing the whole time. Slayer. The lead singer of Slayer is, smiling and laughing while he's talking about death and destruction.
It's kind of part of the deal when you're in a band for a long time, and it's your job and it's your livelihood where the grind keeps going, and you never really think about oh, you know what? I just need a break. I need 6 months off, or I need a year off, or whatever. And you grind and grind and grind, and then one day you burn out. You know what I mean?
I think that happened for me this year.
Yeah.
Because after COVID, you know how they kept bringing back all these festivals, and it's I've been doing one festival every weekend for a year.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck it, I'm canceling the
Yeah, for us, Secret Sauce these days is that time off. You know what I mean? It's we did the big tour in the spring. We just had 6 months or so off. fly out for a couple of festivals, and then next year will be busy, but like planning in substantial time off is like how we can get on stage and smile. Every time it's time to leave, I'm excited to leave, and that's the goal now.
I love it, because it has to be fun. Like, if you're not doing this for fun, what are you doing it for?
Yeah,
you know?
We can't, when you've been doing it for like multiple decades, you can't afford to have times where you're like, I just really don't want to be here.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. Now, one thing I always ask bands like you is, you know, how do you come up with new music after like that many years? Like, to me, it's like you kind of think like you run out of stuff to talk about. Of course, there's a lot going in the world to talk about.
Yeah, you've got to maintain that side of you that is a music fan.
Yeah.
You know, and keep finding new music, keep falling in love with new things, keep finding new inspiration.
See, that's cool.
That's how to do it. You've got to remember that you're like a music fan and a music lover first.
Yes.
And that is the engine of like all the other things that you do.
So who would be your newest, like that gives you spark and passion, newest band out there?
It's not always, it's not always
or
something...
newest that you discovered.
Yeah, it's not, exactly. It doesn't always have to be something new. It doesn't have to be a new artist. It could be something that I've known for a long time, or that I'm just discovering that I find some spark in, some new spark, There could be something where I'm like, wow, I could see. A lot of times for me, it's like, it comes from the most random places. It could be show tunes or jazz classics and vocalists, where I'll hear a melody, I'll hear some kind of chord progression, and I'll be like, all right, I hear this sped up and heavy, and like, I can turn this thing from Fiddler on the Roof into a really interesting punk song. You know what I mean?
That's what I love about punk music, though. Like, a lot of it does stem from something you wouldn't even think it came from, and you just turn it into this punk sound and attitude. Yeah,
well, like you think of like one of the most iconic records from our scene is like My Chemical Romance, Black Parade, right?
Right.
And that is like through and through, like, what if Queen was a punk band? You know what I mean?
That's a great way of putting it.
And it's like, so that they got that spark, right? They're listening to Queen and they're like, what if, right? Like,
yeah.
That's where inspiration comes from, and you've just got to be ready and willing for it to come. Like I said, by being a music lover, by listening to Queen and listening to maybe Bohemian Rhapsody for the 1,000th time in your life and being like, wait a minute, like, I think I have an idea,
Yeah, I mean, that is a cool way of putting it, because I don't think I've thought of it that way, but that is a way cool way.
Yeah, it's just about being willing to accept inspiration, like wherever it might come.
Yeah, because to me, a musician is about experimenting and getting creative. And I think there's a lot of the newer bands nowadays that they kind of try to find this algebraic equation formula to make music.
Right.
Which bands like you and other bands, there was no equation. It was you just did what you felt.
Yeah, but I think that there's also, I recognize that like we are building a house on top of a foundation that was laid for us, right? I like to think of it like that, because you're not just going to pick up an instrument and ignore the fact that chord progressions exist, right? You're not going to ignore the fact that there are keys and there are time signatures. So so you can experiment, but there are parameters, right?
I agree with that.
And then I think that experimentation also doesn't come from sitting in front of a piano and hitting random notes until it sounds good. I think it's at its best when there's a spark of inspiration.
And that made me think of when I was learning how to play guitar, and all the teacher wanted me to do was play these scales, and I was like, I don't want to fucking do these scales. I just want to play a song. But then you realize later that you needed those things to play those songs or to create new songs.
Yeah, and you can think about that, like the building blocks of actually playing music, right? Where the play, like scales and chords and time signatures and keys, like you can think of those as the building blocks of playing music, but the building blocks of like writing and creating music, I think, are those that came before you.
Absolutely. And do you think, I think if you're going to take one positive about that COVID lockdown, is it gave artists a chance to jump off the hamster wheel and get creative again.
Yes. And to miss, like I said, I mean, you always want to when it's time to play a show, when it's time to leave home again, to be excited. Like, man, I missed that part of my life, you know? And that was a massive reset for everybody. Whereas, like, by the time you were able to go again, I think everybody was like, man, I really missed that part of my life, you know?
Right.
No matter how burnt out you might have been in, like, 2021, by 2023, 2024, you were, like, definitely not burnt out anymore. You were, like, ready to be on stage. You were ready to travel.
It drove me crazy not having live music, and I could just imagine how a musician feels, and then... yeah, it's like you get a whole new appreciation. I remember the first gig I did was Sublime and Dirty Heads in a little local amphitheater after COVID lockdown. I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. And then I went a couple days later to Green Day, and I think it's the best time I ever thought Green Day was live. And I think it was just because I was right. I didn't care if a fifth grader was playing recorder on stage. I wanted live music, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
And as an artist, you must feel the same way. You may have taken it for granted at one point, and then you had that time off, and it's like, wow. Yeah,
well, even things like travel, you know, because it's easy to get jaded. It's easy. Like, I'll talk to friends at home or family members or something where it'd be like, oh, where are you off to this weekend? And I'm like, oh, I'm going to Sacramento for a day. And then whatever, and then they're like, oh man, I heard Sacramento's cool, and I'm like, I've been there 30 times, you know what I mean? Like, it's cool, you know what I mean? But that is what that COVID great reset, where you've been sitting at home for a year and a half or whatever, and you're like, man, I wish I could eat at that fucking place in Sacramento right now. Right? You know what I mean? Like, I really wish I could go to Sacramento or go fucking anywhere right now.
100%.
Like, anywhere but my living room.
So... how can people, they should know, but how do they connect to you guys on socials, on the web, buy your merch? Because that's how you get to the next gig.
Yeah, we're just Bayside on everything, you know, Bayside on socials. It's Bayside.com is the website. And yeah, like I said, we're really like, this year we did the big tour, but it's been a lot of rest in preparation for next year. And next year is going to be a real big, busy year.
Oh, I love it. And it's great to hear artists like you doing this so long. They're excited to have a busy year next year.
Absolutely. And it's, you know, and it was in that planning. It was like, let's have a real easy year so that when it's time to go, we'll be like, I can't wait to go do this.
Cool. Is there anything else you want the listeners to know that we haven't covered yet?
No, just check out our new record, The Worst Things Than Being Alive. It's our 9th record.
Does that blow your mind too? Not like
it's crazy.
Could you think when you were back then doing it like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have 9 records?
Well, it's funny. I never thought I'd have a second one, because when you finish writing a record, you're just like, that was every idea I had. Like, I have no more ideas. I don't know how I'm ever gonna make another record. And then somehow
That's why I said what I did
coming
before.
Up with more.
You got those first teenage angst ideas. And then, like, how do you follow that up?
But, yeah, well, you have a lifetime to write your first record. You have 2 years to write your second record.
And that is the key right there. Well, man, I'm so excited you're here at Aftershock, and thanks for being on the Adventures of Pipeman.
Yeah, of course, thanks for having me.
Sure thing.
Hey, it's Anthony from Bayside, and you're listening to the Pipeman on W4CY Radio.
Thank you for listening to the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY Radio.